Your man Madoff, right? He's already behind bars in the States. It didn't take long to put Madoff behind bars. We have had none of that at this stage. We have certain investigations into Anglo-Irish. And Justine mentioned the conflicts of interest. There are enormous conflicts of interest between what went on between Anglo-Irish, Irish Nationwide, the permanent TSB, and then auditing groups that were going in and out of these companies. It was quite extraordinary.
Sure, they'd quite happily have put me in jail for just doing my job.
But my point, Karen, is that we have to start trusting each other. I'll give you a very simple example, and I don't want to take up too much time from the floor. Every time you ring a public body in this country, every time you ring certain private enterprises, the first thing you hear is, this call is being recorded in the interest of customer care, and blah, blah, blah. Now, what on earth is that about? Do the Irish people not even trust each other on a phone? Never mind trusting our politicians.
John,
okay.
Can I just say, I mean, in terms of attracting people into politics, I mean, ultimately the only thing that you can do is do what you did and what I did, which was to stand up if you think that you believe in something and you want to affect some kind of change. I mean, one of the reasons I stood was that Declan Ganley was running in the Northwest, where I was running. And I thought, well, there is a lot of opportunity here for him. And I absolutely don't want Declan Ganley to be elected. Now, I can sit here and talk about it and I can write articles about it. Or do you know what? I can get up and run. So I got up and ran. Arguably, my vote and his vote, you would imagine, we were poles apart. But you know what? Some people put number 1 for him and 2 for me and vice versa. So we know that by being there, I just skewed the vote somehow or other. I took some votes away, and because Labour Party's strong in Galway, that's where he was strong. So we managed to upset the apple cart to a certain extent. I don't know how much my running made a difference, but the point is he didn't get elected. And the point is, if you do believe, it is when people stand up, then other people stand up. I mean, there is that old one about the pearl on the beach or whatever it is, and somebody's going out looking for pearls and they find one, and the next morning there's 2 people out looking for pearls. The only way you can do it is by doing it.
But Susan, it's not only about getting more people into politics, it's about getting a whole load of people out. Well, I think the point about clientelism, mention Michael Lowry, the councillor who was re-elected after being convicted of corruption. The reason we have that is because of the political system that politicians won't let us change. We have a system that relies on politicians being in their constituencies, doing clinics, doing fake favours for their constituents, when we should have less than half the number that's there. We should not have a Shannon, and the TDs we have should be working the same hours and the same number of days as the rest of us. They should be in their office, their place of work, and forget all the nonsense.
And TDs should be doing national work, and councillors should be doing local work, so that you would stop at least some of the
Now, we're kind of scheduled to take a break, but I presume, John, we can go on for a few more minutes, because there are several people who want to comment here still. So I know you have had your hand up for a while.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here at this first meeting of Transparency International in Ireland. I don't think it's a whining session. I would fundamentally disagree with the person who said that, because I think one of the very good things about the collapse in economic terms is the fact that people are now seeing the connections. They are seeing the wheels within wheels. I think some people might have suspected it, but with the setting up of something like NAMA, or with the tribunals, I think the tribunals were very useful. It highlighted connections. I don't think people really knew what was involved. I think there had been tribunals before. I think what we need is information, and I think Justine McCarthy is right. The abuse of the Freedom of Information Act, the fact that you have you're charged for it. What Susan OKeeffe said about all of the things that actually are not being addressed, all of those bills that should have been addressed, given information out to the public, and we look at NAMA, and only last week Minister Lenihan said, oh no, you couldn't reveal the names of people who would benefit or have anything involved because of commercial sensitivities. And yet every other area of our life is supposed to be exposed to scrutiny. But I think it's extremely useful to get information out there, and that is why I admire the journalists in this country who try to do it, because they also have to, I suppose, dance to a commercial tune, their newspapers or their radio stations, whatever. And I really salute people who stand up, because there is enormous power. Politicians have enormous power in this country and enormous deference. The deference that is paid to politicians in this country is quite amazing when you compare it to Scandinavian countries where, ministers or their leaders travel around in public transport and no one thinks anything of it. But here they actually do. They do behave like they are due. It's, and that's their, they actually feel it's their due. But okay, out of tonight, I think one of the things that we should, press for is all of the things that Susan OKeeffe, outlined, that they be enacted, and that the pressure be put maybe on the Green Party, if they want to stay in government, that they would do something useful like that, and, get some transparency going. Thank you very much. And I'm not a member of any political party.
No, that was a super comment. Can I just say very quickly, because it's something that frustrates me deeply, as I'm sure it has to Justine and Susan OKeeffe, is that, I've done investigative journalism work in the past, and I worked for the BBC for 10 years. They know how to do proper investigative journalism in the UK because they have the funds to do so. There is much more money for that. In this country, and I think it is because of that we have had a culture of being able to hide the kind of corruption, because we simply do not have funding for proper investigative journalism. And I think RTE plays a complicit role in actually not using public funds properly to do proper investigations. They have reduced the number of prime times that they're doing because of their reduced budgets. Yet they pay these presenters vast sums of money, which come from our public purses. And I can just tell you, just in terms of working for a commercial radio station like Newstalk, we've had to take reductions in salaries. Our production teams, which were already very narrow, have been pared back to the bone. People are working very hard. We do exceptional work, much of it for the public service interest. We get no chunk of the licence fee, yet RTE gets a massive amount of licence fee money and is able to use commercial ads as well. And I think there needs to be a better spread of that money so that organisations like Newstalk, we'll say the media, Sunday Tribune, Sunday Times, that Justine McCarthy, for example, could be given a chunk of money to go and spend 6 months investigating NAMA. And I think had we had proper use of public service money to do investigative journalism in this country, we should have become much more aware of some of the corruption that was going on in this country. We have minimal amount of investigative journalism, sadly. And it's only going to get worse